Welcome to a new episode of the Guru Perspective. And today I want to discuss what happened with the big rivalry game, America's biggest rivalry game, and that's Army and Navy. And I want to talk about some of the key matchups and the things that went on in the NFL. I definitely want to break down some of those things that happened and what basically went on this weekend. And I want to talk about what's going to happen moving towards this next up and coming weekend. I know that we just got the Monday game out the way, so I want to talk about those and then finish up with what's going to happen on the weekend and give my predictions as well. I want to start off with the Army and Navy game. Pretty good game. This was the most anticipated Army Navy game that I've seen in a while due to the fact that both teams was over 500. You had Navy with a record of 8-3 and Army with a record of 11-1. It was very impressive for Army. But when it comes to rivalry games, you got to throw all that out the window because you never know what'll happen on any given Saturday, like I've been saying in the past. And that's why I want to start off at. I want to start off and talk about what happened in that game. And Blake Horvath actually really had a solid game. He threw for 107 yards and two touchdowns. He also ran for a whopping 204 yards and two touchdowns. So he had four touchdowns on the day with like over 300 yards, just in general, 102 in the air, 204 on the ground. That was definitely impressive. They pulled out all the stops too when it came to trick plays, and they did a few things as far as fakes. They had the big nose tackle run one of them, back on the fake punt, but it was actually they pulled out all the stops and they shocked Army. Army played really conservative and they played more aggressive in this case, and this is the reason why I believe Navy beat them. It was a really good game too to see what he did through the air. It wasn't really as spectacular, but like I said, he got two touchdowns and then, two touchdowns on the ground with 204 yards. That's very impressive. You got to give credit where credit is due when a person is doing that. 204 on the ground, 102 in the air, and then they all both accounted for two touchdowns on the day, equaling four. He was definitely the player of the game. And I tilt my hat off to Navy because I feel like Army this year was a little bit more dominant. And I thought that they was going to make it to the point where it wasn't going to really be close to show by example the reason why they're 11-1. I know people feel like they were better than some of the teams who are playing right now, which I definitely think they were better than Boise, but some people may have thought that. And then at the same time, it's still up for discussion because when you look at it, the rivalry games are different. But this proved to me that you still can't count Navy out. And the crazy thing about it all, too, when you put it all on the line, that you can't look past any team. I believe eventually they'll have more people in the playoff and more teams leading up the 16-team playoff. But until then, right now, that was one of the reasons why I don't feel like Army actually made it. Losing that game definitely spoke volumes on the big stage as well, because they were the only game on, that was really worth mentioning and watching that day. I want to talk about the Heisman too as well. I definitely seen the Heisman. Was really it didn't really shock me, but I was a little stunned by it because they talked about and what made me so upset. They elevated so much about Ashton Genting and how good Ashton Genting was this year. They talked about his yards after contact and they showed all his stats, and I was saying, okay, wow, man, they might be leading on to something. And to not see him get that trophy, it wasn't really shocking, but it definitely surprised me. They said that Ashton Genting has rushed for 2,288 yards this season and averaged 190.7 rushing yards per game. The only two FBS players to hit both of those marks in the same season was Marcus Allen in 1981 and, of course, Barry Sanders in 1988, both whom won Heisman Trophy in the season. That's some stat lines I picked up. And I said, okay, if that was the case, well, then what happened? What happened is, unfortunately, I feel like he ran into Travis Hunter, man, who did really good. As far as he had like 14 touchdowns on the season, four interceptions, and he played both sides of the ball. He played wide receiver and he played cornerback and was one of the elite cornerbacks. I believe more or less when it comes to the draft, they're going to more or less draft him as they're going to probably put plays in for him, whatever team draft him as far as a receiver, but I think they're going to focus on his ball hawking cornerback skills. And I want to talk about what happened this season when it came to Ashton Genting. You know, yards after contact, that man had 1,652 yards, first in the FBS. Yards after contact per rush, 4.8, and that was first in the FBS. And forced missed tackles, he had 111, and that was first as well. And that really surprised me at one point to where I felt like they overhyped him and to not really, well, yeah, he came in second place, but I believe a lot of people felt like it was a shocker when he ended up winning. Travis Hunter, of course. But congratulations to Travis Hunter because I feel like he had an astonishing year and it was something that we've never seen before. That where I felt like, yeah, we seen it with Charles Woodson, we seen it with Desmond Howard and other players who played like kind of both sides of the ball. But he was a man key cog when it came to it. And he was a versatile threat when it came to a wide receiver. And he did it like full time as a wide receiver and cornerback. And he was so dominant on both sides of the ball that's why I think that this is the reason why he ended up winning that award. I'm not taking anything from Travis Hunter because I felt like he was one of the best players and he's definitely well deserving of that reward. This felt kind of bad for Ashton Genting because, naming names like Marcus Allen and Barry Sanders and to not really complete your goal that you were trying to accomplish is kind of sting and it was a slap in the face to that gentleman. But I still wish him the best and I know he's going to have a really great career. I still believe he'll be top 10 in the draft and it's not really much that I can say. I feel like the better man may have won. Some people may agree, some people may disagree. And 2004 is the first year in which winners of the Heisman Trophy, Travis Hunter, NBA MVP Nikola Jokic, and NHL MVP Nathan McKinnon all played for a team in the same state. Travis Hunter finished the season with 1,152 yards, 15 total touchdowns. Let me correct myself, and 4 interceptions. Final results in the trophy race. Travis Hunter had 552 votes, and then Ashton Genting had 309 votes. Travis Hunter set CFB records with 7 awards in the season. He had the Paul Hornung Award, Most Versatile, Light Impact Trophy Defense, Chuck Benerick Award on Defense, Fred Benitikoff Award Receiver, Walter Camp Award Wide Receiver and Defensive Back, AP National Player of the Year Wide Receiver and Defensive Back, and of course he won the Heisman Trophy. So I would like to say congratulations to Travis Hunter. Felt bad for Ashton Genting, but still feel like in this case, it's unfortunate. You guys both had a good career. I feel like they loaded up the box and they surrounded what they were going to do in their game plan around Ashton Genting. But I feel like it was just too much versatility on one end of a person playing two positions. He was a lockdown corner and he was an exceptional wide receiver. And that's the reason why I believe things ended up the way it did when it came to the voting. So, like I said, it's unfortunate for Ashton Genting, but congratulations to Travis Hunter. I will definitely not take that away from you. That was your day, and congratulations. You totally deserved it. I want to move on now and I want to talk about some of the things that happened. I want to get away from college now and I want to focus on NFL. And I will give my predictions too for the up and coming week. I want to start off with some of the games that happened over the weekend. First, I want to talk about the Rams and the 49ers game. That game had some rain in it. The inclement weather really made it rough to watch. It was a hard game to stomach. It reminded me of the old school Thursday games when you like, man, why did they give us this crap? Prime has a really lot of bad games, and they should just go ahead and eliminate it altogether. But we knew it was the weather. That's the reason why a lot of the players didn't perform like they did. But the surprising part about it all was, we start hearing ramblings about Debo Samuel not being happy in the offense and the way he was being used. And it was funny to me in that game once they gave the ball to him after all this stuff and the rambling in the media. It was a nice slant too that would have broke him open for a touchdown, but unfortunately he dropped that pass. One thing I've noticed this year, I was talking to one of my homeboys on Facebook, Marcus Atchison, aka my boy Jack Burton. Shout outs to him. We talked, and I was saying, well, I knew at first the frustration with him when I was getting the ball, but then he was saying, man, you got to pay attention, man. Debo's been dropping a lot of passes as of late. And the more I paid attention to that game, he had the droppies. And it's not just been that game. It's been most of this season. He hasn't been the same receiver, unfortunately. And Brandon Ayuk got that really big deal, and that was people' way of saying that that's going to be mathematically the way that they get Debo Samuel out of San Francisco. And I'm starting to think that as well because I still believe on another team that he could be a number one, but clearly they have their number one with Brandon Ayuk is playing. But that game was just really bad to watch. Like I said, like I can tell you the stats, it was pretty bad. Matthew Stafford was 16 for 27, 160 yards. And Brock Purdy was 14 and 31, 142 yards, and he had a pick. The main thing of the day, I feel like Kyron Williams, carried the team on his back. He had 29 carries for 108 yards. For the most part, we haven't really seen a touchdown in that game. It was all field goals. It reminds you of the old school games back in the 70s and 80s, and either further down. But 12-6 was the final score. I couldn't really stomach the rest of that game, and I was ready to move on. And well, when it comes down to it, at the end of the day, one of the more deadliest teams or more dangerous teams, coming off the week before beating the Buffalo Bills, is the Los Angeles Rams. That defensive front is deadly, and then you got both of your guys back, Cooper Cup, and you have a healthy, Cooper Cup and Puka Nakua combination. They're looking really deadly. The ground game looks good. They just look solid all around. And surprising is Cooper Cup didn't even get a pass on his way that game, and they still found a way to win. So congratulations to the Los Angeles Rams. I want to get this bad taste and the sting out of the way right quick, and I want to start early with the Detroit Lions game. I wasn't really disappointed. It was just a few things in this game I felt like they needed to clean up because Buffalo came off of giving up 44 points in the loss the week prior to. We wasn't as aggressive on offense at the beginning. It was like we couldn't get anything going. The defense was getting cooked because, of course, we don't have a lot of player personnel over there. And we had a lot of guys that we lost this year. And I don't want to make mistakes about it, but if you don't believe me or you just feel like I'm just talking and running off at the mouth, I can give you the stats of all the people that we lost. The Lions' notable defensive injuries this season. We lost our captain on defense, Aiden Hutchinson, our defensive end. Then we lost defensive tackle, Alan McNeil, defensive lineman, Marcus Davenport, defensive lineman, John Kaminsky, linebacker, Alex Anzalone, linebacker, Malcolm Rodriguez, another linebacker, Derek Barnes, and Jalen Reeves Maven. We just lost cornerback Carlton Davis. It's a possibility he'll be back for the playoffs, but he'll be out for 6 weeks. We still don't have our cornerback, Enos Rickerstraw Jr. He should be returning soon. Cornerback Emmanuel Mosley, he's been injured most of the whole season and hasn't really played. Ifantu Melifonwu, that's a really fun name to say. He'll be returning soon. We just lost running back David Montgomery after the game, and he'll be gone for the rest of the season. Mekhi Wingo, defensive tackle. Davis Bada, defensive tackle. Cornerback Khalil Dorsett just found out that he was going to be out. Defensive tackle Kyle Petco. Wide receiver, special teamer Khalif Raymond. Wide receiver Antoine Green. And then our offensive tackle Connor Calvin. Yeah, I just named off damn near a whole roster that we had of injuries. But I don't want to make any excuses for that because we've been playing well even with the banged up roster, even though we lost another 3 or 4 players after the game. But that one pride and our grit is something that we stand for. And I still believe in it. We were down by 3 touchdowns at one point. And I believe what hurt us was at that time was when Amon-Ra St. Brown had that fumble. When that fumble was recovered, I said, uh-oh, we in trouble, man. We gave it to them right there in the red zone. Automatic instant red zone. And I didn't really too much care for the onside kick. But then and again, I can't complain because we know when the things work, when Dan Campbell do it, we feel like he's a genius. But when they don't work, people want to trash him, and I'm not going to do that right now. I definitely question that play, and a lot of other people did too, because it was another instant red zone opportunity. But when you look at them when smoke is clear, I just like the way those guys fought back because they were down by so much, and then they came back and actually really made it a game. They made it interesting because they were going to still try to score and do an onside kick, but it was just too many mistakes. And I know we were undermanned, and that was one of the reasons why I feel like we lost that game. I feel like more or less some of the bad decision making, but then, like I said, I can't blame Dan Campbell for that. I feel like because if we got that possession, they would have looked at him like he was a genius, and it would have been a possibility if one of those two plays would have been cleaned up, or better yet, if he didn't fumble and we was able to get that possession, then maybe I'd have been looking at it totally different. But those things happened, and that was the past. The final score was Buffalo 48, Detroit Lions 42. I feel like after winning 11 straight games, I was proud of those guys, especially after coming off of that last Thursday game that they played. When they beat Green Bay, it was a battle. It was like our defense was undermanned, but we still persevered and we came on to win. And we played this week and still made, the Buffalo Bills sweat at the end of the game. It kind of reminded me of the game when they played the Los Angeles Rams recently. But I have to give credit where credit is due. Buffalo won the game. I'm not taking nothing away from them, but then I still question their defense too because that's the second week in a row that they gave up 40 something points. So that's a question there. I still believe in the playoffs they'll be a dominant team, but if they can't stop the other team, it'll still be a problem with them. At the end of the day, I give credit where credit is due, and I still feel like Jared Goff, when it comes to looking at him as an MVP candidate, he might not win it, but he's definitely one of the top five guys when it comes down to it because he held it down in that game. He had 494 yards and 5 touchdowns. He didn't really look that good in the first half, but in the second half, he came out, man, and we were scoring in bunches. So like to give credit where credit is due. And then still, those guys with all those injuries are still not making any excuses. But Buffalo Bills did what they had to do. We were undermanned. I know they have injuries too, but then in the NFL, you got to play in the next man up mentality. He had 362 yards and 2 touchdowns. He really didn't have to do much with those instant red zone situations they were in. And James Cook really looked great from last year, the end of last year to this season. He had 105 yards and 2 touchdowns, and that was one of the difference makers. Jameer Gibbs had 31 yards in the score. David Montgomery didn't do too much, but Amon-Ra St. Brown had 14 receptions for 193 yards in the score as well. Like I said, those guys really look good, man. And being undermanned like we are, I don't want to make no excuses. But to lose this game this late in the season, kind of reality check. Glad that basically is something now the way they can hit the reset button. I know they was feeling bad about their game because they still feel like they were in it. And at the end of the day, now they got to move past that and focus on the game ahead of them, in which that's going to be going to the Chicago Bears. Baltimore Ravens, and when it came to the New York, Giants, I'm not going to talk about that for long. I want to talk about the performance of Lamar Jackson being probably close to one of the front runners, if not the front runner to the MVP race. You still have Josh Allen playing lights out, Saquon Barkley making his case, and then Lamar Jackson still there knocking on the door. He had 290 yards and 5 touchdowns. And Rashad Bateman looked pretty good too. He had 80 yards and 2 scores. Derrick Henry had a pretty quiet day, 14 carries, 67 yards, but no disrespect. They played the New York Giants, so I didn't expect he didn't have to be a world beater in this game. Lamar Jackson actually controlled and took over that game, and that was the result. 35-14 speak volumes. I'm thinking one of those guys on the hot seat that I said, Brian Daboll, once it comes to Black Monday, will be gone. Another bad game. New York Jets versus the Jacksonville Jaguars. This game was going back and forth at one point. I thought the Jaguars probably pull it out, but that didn't happen. Mac Jones had 294 yards, 2 touchdowns, and he had 2 interceptions. Brian Thomas Jr. really looked good. He had 10 receptions for 105 yards, and he had 2 touchdowns on the day. Oh, reliable. Aaron Rodgers, he can definitely start to take that old position now because he looked every bit of it. But he was 16 to 30, 289 yards and 3 touchdowns. And one of the guys who shined in that game was one of his old targets, and that's Devontae Adams. He really looked sharp. This was his breakout game this year. He had 9 receptions for 198 yards and 2 touchdowns. And he was the one who closed any type of so-called comeback on the Jacksonville Jaguars part. The final score was 32-25, and that's all I want to even really talk about that game. I really don't want to talk about this game as much neither, and it's the Dallas Cowboys. And the Dallas Cowboys took on the Carolina Panthers. The final score was 30-14. Cooper Rush had 214 yards and 3 touchdowns on the day. Bryce Young was pretty banged up. That O line really didn't protect him, and he looked like how he did back in week 1 before they benched him. He had 219 yards, a touchdown, and he had 2 interceptions on the day. And that defense really got to him as well. I know he took a beating. He's going to be bruised up and battered and going into the next week game. The Commanders and the Saints was a really funky game. At the end of the day, Jaden Daniels ended up pulling off the victory. He had 226 yards and 2 touchdowns. Terry McLaurin had 73 yards and 2 scores and looked very impressive that game. Spencer Rattler had 135 yards and he had a touchdown on the day, but that score was closer than when people expected. I thought Washington was going to run away with that game, but they squeaked past them. It was 20-19. That was the final score of the day. Bengals and Tennessee Titans. That game was kind of funky too at the beginning because the Bengals were getting beat, and they were getting beat convincingly too. But one thing I know is sad to say, when you got Will Levis on the team, he's going to give you the ball. And he threw those 2 picks in the game, and it was so bad that I believe the coach said enough is enough. He ended up benching Will Levis and went with Mason Rudolph. Mason Rudolph, after him being benched, had 209 yards. He had 2 touchdowns, and he had an interception on the day as well. Tony Pollard had 45 yards in the score. And I still feel like Tajay Spears really looked good in that game as well. He had 87 yards in the score. Joe Burrow kind of looked stagnant that game. He didn't really look as good as I thought he would. He had 271 yards, 3 touchdowns, and 2 picks on the day. And Jamar Chase had 9 receptions and 94 yards. Chase Brown is really one of the bright spotlights on that team right now. He always have a knack for the end zone. He had 97 yards and he had a touchdown as well. Like I said, this game was kind of funky. More or less, the game shifted. And, once that game shifted with all the picks that Will Levis was doing, it gave the Bengals a chance to win. And the final score was 37-27. Chiefs and Browns, don't really want to talk about that game because I figured it was going to be that way. Patrick Mahomes had a pedestrian day, but it didn't matter because they still pulled out the win. He had 159 yards and 2 touchdowns, and I feel like it doesn't really matter because when you look at it, Jameis Winston had a really bad down game, 146 yards and 3 interceptions. Those 3 interceptions helped Kansas City capitalize on it. You can't make mistakes against a team like that and feel like you're going to win a game. Jerome Ford had 84 yards and he had a touchdown, and Jerry Jeudy had 11 receptions for 108 yards too. I feel like if Jameis could have scored rather than give the ball away, they could have won the possession of the ball. I'm not saying won the game because they still was going to lose that game. That final score was 21-7 because he threw 2 picks and it was 2 really bad picks and one was in the end zone too. So they didn't have a chance. And it's unfortunate because you're rooting for Jameis Winston and you want what's best for him. But in this case right now, I think that they might still look at him in a Cleveland uniform, but I don't know how far that'll get him. That'll probably still be him being a backup at best. Miami Dolphins and the the Houston Texans. That game was really kind of weird too. It was like nobody wanted to win the game at first, but Tua had one of his worst career games. He had 196 yards, a touchdown, and he had three picks on the day. And my man Stingley ate real good because I think he was a recipient of two of those interceptions. CJ Stroud had 131 yards and two touchdowns as well. He had pretty much some good instant red zone opportunities that he took advantage of because yeah, this game was one of the weirdest games I watched. This was between two okay teams, but it still looked bad. That score was 20-12. That was the final, and the Texans went on to win that game and clinch the division. That lets you know how bad that division is. No disrespect. Colts and Broncos. That game I thought was going to be a little bit better than what it was, but Anthony Richardson starting to show that after getting injured early, he still have those rookie tendencies. He had 172 yards and two picks on the day. One of them was a really bad one. It was on a trick play where the ball got tossed to the receiver, and the receiver tried to toss the ball back, and somebody had caught that ball when he was trying to throw it back and got an easy pick six. It was a really awful design play, and that just showed you that spoke volumes of that game. But Bo Nix didn't do as good. I mean, he played pretty bad, but he didn't play as bad as Anthony Richardson. He had 130 yards with three touchdowns. That saved them, but he still had three picks on the day as well. And Cortland Sutton had only 32 yards, but he ended up scoring. That was another game that was kind of weird to watch. The final score was 31-13, and the Denver Broncos won, and they're 9-5 in their division. This Patriots game with the Cardinals was really bad too. I don't really want to give off too many stats. I just want to say the end result was Arizona won 30-17. This is the game right here that I wanted to talk about on Buccaneers and Chargers because Buccaneers at one point, people were counting them out. And everybody was cheering and thinking that the Atlanta Falcons was going to take that division. Atlanta lost like three straight games, and while Tampa Bay was trending in the right direction. Baker Mayfield had 288 yards and four touchdowns on the day. He had a pick, but other than that, he looked really good. The recipient of his good game was Mike Evans. Mike Evans had nine receptions, 159 yards, and two scores. Justin Hubbard had 195 yards. He had two touchdowns and he had a pick on the day. And Ladd McConkey had 58 yards in the score. The final score ended up being a blowout victory for Tampa Bay. That defense is stout and they have really good guys on, that end on their front. They have them on the back end and with their corners and safeties. And they do a really good job with their O line and some of the targets that he throws to, especially having Mike Evans back 100% and healthy. I think he needs now 251 yards for the next two games to average another year, which would be his 11th year with 1,000 receiving yards. So congratulations on that. The final score was 40-17, Tampa Bay Buccaneers. This was a game I was looking forward to as well. I thought it was going to be a little better than what it was, and it wasn't. Pittsburgh Steelers versus the Philadelphia Eagles. The Battle of Pennsylvania. Russell Wilson had a really stagnant game. He didn't really look that good like he did in prior, but you got to give credit where credit is due in that good Philadelphia Eagles defense. Russell Wilson had 129 yards and a touchdown. Jalen Hurts had 290 yards and he had two scores. A.J. Brown was satisfied. He had eight receptions, 110 yards, and he had a touchdown. The reason why I'm saying that because a lot of people felt like A.J. Brown called out Jalen Hurts, which he did in a way. He didn't make it on him, but he definitely surrounded the fact that he wasn't getting the ball as much. When they won the game, too, they almost lost that game. I think it was 20-16 or 22-16 when they beat Carolina Panthers. And they asked him, in the press conference, what do you think went wrong in this game? And he said, we need to do better at the passing game. I don't think, it's to the point where Saquon Barkley, when he's getting his spotlight, I think at one point it was all being celebrated, but he wanted the ball more. And I know in a way I have the stats to prove why he's not really wrong about it neither. But sometimes it can't be all about you. You know, you got to focus on getting everybody else involved in the game. And yeah, I was right. The score was 22-16 when they beat the Carolina Panthers. And I said basically at first was that a cause for AJ Brown to have a right to be frustrated. And AJ Brown with the Philadelphia Eagles has been pretty complicated as of late. In 2022, he had 88 catches for 1,496 yards. He had 11 touchdowns that year. 2023, he had 106, catches, 1,456 yards, and 7 touchdowns. This year's been kind of a down year, but I know now with the weapons he had, Dallas Goddard and Devontae Smith, and even Saquon Barkley catching some of those balls out the backfield, it was a little different this year, and it's not really that bad neither. He had 48 catches for 836 yards and 4 touchdowns. So yeah, I don't think that he's getting his ball as much as he would like. He should be getting the ball a little bit more, but most times people concentrate on, going after him. And they're going to double triple team him when they had a chance. So yeah, I understand his frustration, but you can't get the ball all the time because if he start force feeding you, and then that's going to be another problem. That final score was 27-13, and they pretty much dominated. Philadelphia dominated the Steelers, a team that usually have smash nose, football that they play and they put on heavy display. But the Smash Mouth got out Smash Mouth in this game, and Philadelphia, asserted their dominance. That's all I can say. Green Bay Packers and the Seattle Seahawks. This game was kind of scary because Geno Smith got injured, and that was kind of like downhill from there. He had 149 yards in the interception. Outside of him, nothing really was done. Zach Charbonnet had 54 yards, and he had a touchdown, and he's been a bright spot this year after Kenneth Walker got injured. Jordan Love had 229 yards and 2 scores. Josh Jacobs been really dominant on the ground. He had 94 yards and a touchdown as well. That final score was 30-13, and Green Bay is in double digits in victories. I want to talk about the Monday night games. They were really bad. They were worse than the Thursday game, in my opinion, because Chicago Bears took on the Minnesota Vikings. That was almost like a freebie game for them. Caleb Williams had 191 yards and he had a touchdown on the day. Sam Darnold had 234 yards, 231 yards, a touchdown, and he had a pick. The defense looked pretty solid for the Bears, but at the end of the day, they couldn't really stop as many, possessions that they needed. They couldn't score at all. They were stopped on like 2 fourth down, situations where they was trying to convert. Keenan Allen had 82 yards and he had one of the touchdowns on the day, but I feel like it was too much of that Minnesota Vikings defense, and I have to give credit where credit is due because they're still healthy and they're playing lights out as well. That final score was 30-12, and now you have 3 teams with a 12-2 record. Right now, I still believe since we beat Minnesota, that's why the Lions are still up top right now. But then you got Minnesota and the Philadelphia Eagles breathing down our throats. So it's a lot of things that we need to get together and shape up on. Hopefully, we can bounce back. I will definitely be telling you the teams that we're going to be facing and the team that we face this week and my predictions. But this game was really bad too. Atlanta Falcons against the Las Vegas Raiders. Desmond Ritter had 208 yards, a touchdown, and 2 picks on the day. And Kirk Cousins had a touchdown and an interception as well with 112 yards passing. Bijan Robinson had 125 yards on the ground, and Drake London had 53 yards, and he had a score as well. This was a really mediocre, bad game. Atlanta's defense really looked sharp. They got a safety and they got a touchdown, but all in all, the record that they have, they still is in the race for the NFC South. But this was a really pedestrian game as well. That final score was 15-9. And I definitely want to move on from that. Debo Samuel was frustrated and didn't apologize for it. The 49ers receiver made some headlines on social media Monday saying finding a way to summarize his struggles. Not struggling at all, just not getting the ball. Samuel initially posted that on his X account. The post was eventually deleted, with Samuel later adding a new one. Just because I voiced my opinion don't mean that I'm hating on any of my teammates. In that game, he didn't really look good neither when he missed that slant, like I was explaining earlier. And he was getting the ball a lot this year with Brandon Ayuk being out, and it's still not like he's really making an impact. So when you are getting the ball, you're not doing anything. You're getting booed by your own fans right now. So that speaks volumes as well. I don't think that he'll be in town for long. I would be surprised if they keep him now, after drafting a wide receiver and having Brandon Ayuk with that type of money, they're not going to be able to pay him. He's going to be the odd man looking out right now. And to make matters worse, Devondre Campbell refused to get in the game. They ended up getting back Dre Greenlaw. He was having issues after his injury. Of course, he didn't play in a while. And then the other, linebacker got banged up to where he was the only one that was really healthy on the roster. Devondre Campbell refused to play. He was asked to go back in the game against the Los Angeles Rams in the third quarter on the Thursday game. And like I said, Dre Greenlaw had to leave the game with Achilles and knee soreness. He said he didn't want to play anymore. And he walked off in the third quarter and basically quit on this team. The last time I remember somebody doing something that despicable was Vontae Davis in 2016 when he quit at halftime, and that was against the Los Angeles Chargers. Davis told Bills head coach Sean McDermott he was done, and he left the stadium at the half. I never seen nothing that disgraceful and forget to basically give up on your team like that. But in this case, I'm just really surprised that Devondre Campbell didn't get fired on the spot. They ended up suspending him 3 games, and I don't believe he'll be back with that team. But he had issues with Green Bay. He ended up walking off and refusing to play for them too. So I believe that this might be his last stint in the NFL, especially having a team like San Francisco where you quit on them. Yeah, this was a down season for them, and they had a lot of injuries too, and never was able to rebound from it. But you still don't quit on your team, man. I was definitely very disappointed in seeing that. I want to talk about some of the games that's going to happen this week too, as well, and I want to give my predictions on the games in the NFL. Week 16, Denver Broncos faces the Los Angeles Chargers. I'm going to give it to the Chargers. I'll take the points by 3. Saturday we have a game too as well. We have a doubleheader on Saturday, so yeah, I'm really looking forward to this weekend, especially with the holidays on the way. Houston Texans go to the Kansas City Chiefs. This is going to be a tricky one right here, and I'm not really surprised what they're doing. They pick Houston by 2 points. It's a possibility with Patrick Mahomes being banged up with the high ankle sprain. If you guys didn't see it, it was close to the end of the game where somebody tackled him around his legs, and then somebody hit him in the chest area, and he bent like a pretzel, and he went out the rest of the game. By that time, I think it was 4 or 5 minutes left in the game, and then they didn't have any problem putting Carson Wentz in because the game was already over. Because Cleveland showed that they couldn't score and Jameis Winston couldn't take care of the ball. Bottom line is, Kansas City escaped that one 21-7. And now they have to play again at home. It's a possibility that Patrick Mahomes may play, but I think his health is more important than him playing and getting or re-injuring himself. So yeah, I would definitely keep an eye out on that. But I will take the points on this one. If Patrick Mahomes not playing, I have Houston by 2 as well. Pittsburgh Steelers versus the Ravens. This one right here, I believe the Ravens going to definitely get at home. They usually struggle in Pittsburgh, but now them being home, I will take the 6 points on this one as well. Detroit Lions on Sunday have a pretty good rebound game against the Bears. I'm not trying to really, look past the Bears, but because it's any given Sunday, but I'm going to take them points with 6.5 with the Detroit Lions. Definitely after that disappointing loss they suffered. Los Angeles Rams versus the New York Jets. I'm going to go with the Rams, and I'll take the 3.5 points on the road. Eagles versus Commanders, I will go with Philly, and I'll take the 3.5 points on this one. Giants versus the Falcons. I could say next, but I'm going to take the 10 points with Atlanta. Cardinals versus the Panthers, I'm going to take the Cardinals, and I'm not going with that 4. I'm going over. I'm going to go 10 points. Browns and the Bengals, I'm going to go Bengals. I'm going to take the 7 points. Titans and the Colts, I'm going to go with the 4 points with the Colts. Vikings and Seahawks, I don't think Geno's going to be able to play that game, and they're on a roll, but I'm going to give the Minnesota with the 3 points. Patriots, Bills, I got the Bills by the 14 points, and that's the highest margin of this week. Jaguars and Raiders, I'm going to go with Jacksonville by 1.5. 49ers and Dolphins, I'm going Dolphins, and I'm going to take that 1.5, but that game can go either way. Buccaneers and the Cowboys, I'm going Tampa. I'm going to take those points as well in the last game. Oh, man. New Orleans Saints versus the Packers. I'm going to go with the Packers, and I'm going to take the 13.5. Actually, that's the largest margin game victory. I want to go on and I want to talk about some of the things that I believe is going to happen too when it comes to this week. It's some desperation games in there, and I'm looking forward to seeing what happened this weekend. I enjoyed last week, and I know this is going to be a good weekend. I don't really want to get into stats, and I don't really want to talk about a lot, when it comes to football. At this point in the stage of the podcast, I want to talk a little bit about family. I want to say to all the people out there, I know it's kind of rough and it's a struggle this time of year. A lot of us lost loved ones and can't see loved ones. And we're going through a lot of struggles. A lot of people keep quiet about some of their struggles, some more than not. And I just like to spend this time with my family and friends and to just have a good time. But some people are not having a good time. And I want to talk just a little bit about mental health, man. When you see signs, man, you got to check up on your friends, man. I don't want everything to be about me. And I always want to make sure when I don't hear from a friend or a loved one or somebody who I know who's going through struggles, Lord knows I've been going through mine. I just thank, God, that I've been able to, defeat all odds and to keep my head on straight. I have my good and I have my bad days like everyone. But I just want you guys to know, um, just reach out to a friend or a loved one, check and see how they're doing, around this time of year. Some people, struggling financially and just don't really have what it takes, and they're upset or they're alone. I just say, man, just be a generous person, man. Give, be thankful and thank the Lord and count all our blessings. This year, usually a lot of people struggle with depression, not because of the weather, then, struggling at your job. Some people are getting laid off and going through situations that you won't even really know about or you can imagine. I would just like to say to everybody out here, thank you for listening to the show. But at the same time, I want y'all all to be safe and have a blessed and happy holiday as well. Next week, I won't be going on. I won't be doing the show, but I just wanted to give that shout out and maybe I can reach and, go and say something to someone who can, listen to what I'm saying. It might give them hope and it might help them out, through these rough times of the year. But I just like to say, man, just reach out to a friend, a loved one, even if you haven't reached out in a while. Just call them and, man, check up on them, see how they doing, man. And wish them a happy holiday, man. See what you could do to help them, man. When you give out a helping hand, and this time of year, it's better to give than receive anyway. But yeah, just check and see how people are doing, man. This time of year is hard for a lot of people, including myself. After losing a loved one around this time of year, but I feel like family is everything. I have a good time spending time with family and then, just spending the holidays and being able to be around them around this time of year. So that gives me strength. But for the people who don't have that love and support, I would like to say I love you guys. Be safe. And I already told you before that if you want to reach out to me, you can always reach out to me. It's not even really about sports now. And this is something that I want to make known. You don't have to reach out to me just for sports or reaching out to my social medias. I can give that to you as well if you just need a friend or someone to talk to. Starters, Sports Guru to You is my Facebook page if you want to reach out to me. Dale Lee is my original Facebook page where most of my family and friends and loved ones can really reach out to me if they want to get with me. Hoovy is my Instagram page where I normally put like the podcast and different things that I'm going through. And, that's another way you can reach out to me. You can reach out to me to the sports guru to you at gmail.com as well. And also the guru's perspective, reach out to me here or every Wednesday at 9 p.m. on the guru football session. Thank you all. I just wanted to share that with you and spend a little time to talk to you guys just about, life in general. But I want you all to be blessed and have a good day. And thank you for chiming in on the show. But yeah, sometimes we just got to put sports and everything to the side and we need to focus on our friends, family, and loved ones and mental health and trying to reach out, man. You don't know, you could probably save a life just from being there and being a friend. And that's all I really wanted to say. I won't be on next weekend or next week, Tuesday. I would like to say happy holidays and have a blessed day. Peace.